everyone, and welcome to another piano review video here on Merriam Pianos. My name is Stu Harrison, and in today's video, this is a side-by-side comparison of all of the piano VST videos that we have looked at over the last many weeks. This is the best of what's out there. I know there were a couple that we didn't get to, but 10 plugins were extensively reviewed, compared, and here is our final walkthrough, a full comparison side by side of all of them. So thank you so much for joining us in today's video. If it's the first time that you are stopping to see us here on YouTube, we'd also really love for you to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That's a really important one, so that you'll know every time we come out with a video, because we'd love to have you back. We'd love to have you as a part of our ever-growing community. So without further ado, let's get started with this walkthrough of our 10 piano VSTs right away. So over the course of many weeks, I have had a chance to experience and get to know 10 leading piano VST plugins. It's been a really enjoyable, fun process. So this lockdown was a great opportunity to spend some time with the leading music software in the space, obviously having to do with pianos. I'm gonna walk you through all 10 in a side-by-side comparison. I'm going to just list these in alphabetical order, so I'm not implying any sort of preference, but certainly I will be sharing with you my opinions along the way, and we hope that the side-by-side comparison along with the opinions is going to be useful to you potentially making a decision on which one or ones of these software packages might be a great fit for you. First up is Addictive Keys. Just like the drums, there are various packs that you can get within the Addictive Keys universe. And the one that I thought was the most applicable to our exploration was not going to be the Electric Grand or the Mark I or even the Modern Upright, which I think is a Bechstein, by the way. It was the Studio Grand. And they have not so subtly hinted that, of course, this is a Steinway. There's sort of a nice little play on the Steinway logo. They've done Studio Grand in the Steinway font or something very close to it. And judging from the outlines of the side gables of the piano, piano nerds might know that this is one way that you can often tell the difference between a New York Steinway and a Hamburg Steinway. I believe we are looking at a Hamburg Steinway. Not only that, but typically New York Steinways are done in a satin finish and the Hamburgs are usually done in a polish. So within this Studio Grand package, they have really four ways in which you can access the different sample sets that they have included in this. And so by going up to gallery here, you can see in this kind of slider, really is kind of a slider, that you've got Studio Grand Producer, which they, I guess, is assuming that this is going to give you the various types of options that you might want to go at from a producer standpoint. And a lot of these sounds and these modulations are more based around the outcomes and the applications. So Studio Grand, aged strings, roomy pop, intimate, jazz-ish. I like that, jazz-ish. Imagine Grand, intense keys. You can kind of imagine what all of these are going to sound like even before you start playing. So let's listen to what Studio Grand sounds like. So once you are into this, there's lots and lots and lots of editing that you have the ability to do. You can access different microphones. You can access, which is very, very cool, lots of ways. And all of those presets we were just looking at are really just different ways of accessing the settings over here within the edit and the effects. So you can certainly hear some compression going on. That's happening because of your amp tube here. That's one of the things that might be affecting that. You've got EQ. You've got pitch, filter, volume, all kinds of ways to manipulate this. And then, as we said, we've got our delay, reverb, effects 1 and 2, our ambience chambers, tons of stuff, tons and tons of stuff. And as you access these different microphone placements, you're accessing different sample sets. And you can mix and match up to 3 of these at one time. So in this regard, it's very similar to the approach that you get with the Vienna Symphonic Library, as well as the Ravenscroft, the ability to draw from multiple sample sets and mix and match them and affect them all independently. With this plugin, you're only getting one piano, but they have mic'd the piano in so many different ways and made the editing really kind of fun. I think Addictive Keys has nailed the user interface possibly better, or certainly one of the best of any of the plugin makers out there. It makes it fun, it feels modern, but it never feels particularly dumbed down. Addictive Keys was definitely one of my favorites to explore. These particular edits over here, when you get back into, say, your studio settings, or your, I think this is called as recorded, which is really just a set of presets that's a slicker, more simplified way of accessing your edit window. But these are a little more crude, and you may wind up using a few of those. This is kind of some combination of high and low pass filters and some EQ affecting to create these soft, hard, and tonal timbre. These aren't necessarily advanced algorithmic changes to the piano model. They're really just tonal trickery to change and affect that a little bit, rather than you having to do it with a bunch of external plugins. So highly usable plugin, great capture of what I believe is a Hamburg Steinway D. And just because I feel like we have to hear what the heck jazzish sounds like. So really a Bill Evans-y kind of Rudy Van Gelder kind of thing. Another plus is that the sample sets from a size and a management standpoint are pretty small. Now, if there's one drawback to this plugin, it would be that compared to some of the other ones, the detail level and the depth in the samples isn't quite what you get on some of the larger libraries. But you have to balance that with usability for systems where you're using maybe slightly smaller RAM configurations or slightly older CPU configurations. This is a pretty lightweight, efficient plugin. So that's a good thing too. Let's move on to Alicia's keys. Now, Alicia's keys, as you might suspect, is Alicia Keys Custom C3. It's a C3 Neo. I don't think they made very many of these. So this is a 6'1" Yamaha Japanese piano, and they've captured this in some pretty stark detail, warts and all. So there's some idiosyncrasies that come along with a 6-foot piano, but there's also some intimacy that you get with a 6-foot piano that sometimes escapes you on a 9-foot. Tend to get a little less soundboard tone, a little more string tone on a 6-foot. And they haven't really gone for any wacky, highly affected presets on here. It's just various ambience settings. And that's really all there is to the plugin. It's one of the least expensive plugins. It's part of the Native Instruments universe. It plays through the Contact player. You don't need full contact for it. And again, it's fairly lightweight. The settings that you have on here are somewhat limited compared to the other ones, but still totally functional. Again, you have to, weigh all this against the price. I think this is $70 or $80 for this plugin, and especially if you get it as a part of the the complete ultimate package or something like that. I mean, for not having to spend any more money beyond the $1,300 or $1,500 you did to get the full pack, this is a super useful, functional, plugin that's going to give you, I guess it's kind of halfway between like an upright tone and one of those full big concert grand tones. And there's times where you are going to want the sound of a 6-foot. Especially for people doing, I could see kind of a lot of indie production where you have that folky, Americana-y kind of sound. You don't want something quite as boxed in as an upright sound, but you're definitely not looking for anything as grandiose and as perfect as a $200,000 9-foot. This 6-foot kind of falls right in the sweet spot. And when you think about it, a lot of Alicia Keys hits have piano tracks that kind of, they sort of fall into that description of what I just said. So, big studio. And that's all there really is, honestly, to the Alicia Keys. So inexpensive, pretty lightweight, one of the older ones in here too, but for times where you're looking, like I said, for something that's just a little less perfect and a little less grandiose, but not quite like an upright sound, this could be really very handy. Let's move on now to CinePiano. Now, CinePiano is made by the folks over at, geez, I don't know what's the company called, but all of their stuff is Cine Strings, CinePiano, Cinebrass, and they make a lot of plugins that are used by scoring engineers, scoring composers, things like that. And I really like their Cine Strings. Cine Strings is something that I use quite a bit. I just like the sound they've captured. I like the sound of that MGM soundstage that they did all of the sampling in. And I thought, well, if CinePiano has a similar vibe, I'm really going to like it. There's a few ways to load this plugin up, but the easiest way to do it is just to load the full thing up, which gives you 4 different kind of sample sets that you can mix and match, turn on and off. There is not an enormous number of settings here, so this really is you either like how they've captured the piano or you don't like how they've captured the piano. You've got a couple of things like the release volume, pedal behavior, soundboard liveliness, which I believe is just probably some fancy multi-band compression settings that they've stuck in there. So, I mean, there's enough that you can tweak it, but it's not going to feel quite as specific as something like Piano Tech, where you can literally edit everything if you want to, if that's something that you're looking for. But I like how it's got the channel strips here. Kind of reminds me of Garriton a little bit in that regard. They've gone for that look and feel. All of the presets are really quite functional, and what you'll probably find yourself doing with this is, one, deciding if you even like the sound of the piano. So before we get too far in, let's just hear the piano. I think I said this when I did the individual review of this. They've beautifully captured the room. So you've got the option to really mix in natural room ambience. You do have a reverb engine in there, and here are all of your reverb presets that you can choose. Something a little colder, but almost with like some plate reverb in there. Very last thing I want to point out, it's kind of an interesting feature. They have this perspective off, perspective on preset. And what it does is it sort of allows you to move yourself either closer or further away from the piano without having to manipulate the sliders yourself. So if you want something that's really distant with still a little bit of clarity, you might do something like this. Or all the way, or really super close and dry. So that's CinePiano. I'd say kind of medium in terms of the level of editing and the level of intricacy in which you can get in and manipulate the sound, but a beautiful capture of the room and a really beautiful capture of the 9-foot in that room. So I like it for, I guess, it sort of reminds me of the 9-foot version in a lot of ways of the Alicia's keys-ish. Kind of a similar vibe. Anyway, I enjoyed it. Not necessarily the most versatile plugin or necessarily the most detailed, but for vibey piano stuff and for vintagey sounding stuff, I find this has nailed it. It probably has the best natural vintage 9-foot piano sound that I've heard. So if I was trying to replicate some sort of an aged recording, or I wanted to come up with some original RCA Victor gramophone vibe, I might turn to the CinePiano thing. Really does that very well. Hi everyone, and that's the end of part 1 of our comprehensive walkthrough of all of the top VSTs of the day. To continue to part 2, just click the link below and we will continue through our journey. Thanks so much for watching.